there, and welcome back to the HE Enabled podcast. My name is Cath, my pronouns are she, they, and it has been a hot second since the first episode was released. Thank you to everyone who has listened, followed, and volunteered to be on the show since episode 1 came out in October. Your patience while I've got things up and running is really, really appreciated, and I hope to be releasing episodes more frequently from here on out. So thank you. At the moment, I'm still arranging interview slots for people to share their experiences in the British higher education system. While that's going on in the background, I will be releasing a mini-series called the ADHD Survival Guide. If you want to be on the show after the series ends, there'll be information about how to get involved at the end of this episode. So as someone with adult diagnosed ADHD, organising my life has always taken a lot more energy than it has for my neurotypical peers. The busyness of university, combined with the burden of executive dysfunction, that which affects one's abilities to do otherwise trivial tasks, meant that I learned to be very deliberate about how I use my limited attention and energy effectively. Burning through too much energy too quickly can be a catalyst to pretty negative habits for me, such as doom scrolling or rotting in my bed, and that can obviously have a negative impact on my mental health if it's done too much. I've developed the survival guide after spending the past few years working on optimizing my productivity while still being kind to my neurodivergent self. The tips and tricks presented in this series will be provided in very rapid-fire format, as I tell you what helped me get through uni with a busy schedule, ADHD, and my sanity more or less intact as I got to understand my condition better. Please keep in mind that this is not a substitute for medical advice, and if you have any concerns about your sleep, you should always seek professional advice where possible. I'll be breaking this mini-series down into 3 episodes to start with. So this particular episode will explore how to practically manage our sleep schedule, including some of the apps and techniques which have worked for me in university and beyond. The second episode will look at how to manage our food, including how to bulk cook, budget appropriately, and to use the local market as a way to schedule our shopping trips. The final episode I have planned for now will focus on optimizing our overall well-being and effectively managing rest. When situations can be stressful and degrees overwhelming, knowing how to come back to yourself is absolutely paramount. Having solid foundational habits around food, sleep, and rest will also help you to sustain other areas of life, especially when the going gets tough and, like me, you don't want or have any medication to help you on your way. So with this in mind, let's not waste any time getting to my first set of tips and tricks about managing sleep. So, in my opinion, one of the trickiest things to pin down at university is a good sleep schedule. Maybe you enjoy partying late into the night. Maybe you just like to study until the early hours of the morning. Or you have good intentions of going to bed, but just get stuck on a screen or maybe even a good book until you can't keep your eyes open anymore. Whatever the case may be, hectic sleep schedules are more often than not unproductive and unhelpful if we want to have good mental health and sustainable routines throughout our time at university. So let's take some time today to see what can be done to improve our sleep and maybe even our overall well-being. Before I even consider talking about sleep, I think it's worth talking about how our biology and our actions during the day can impact the duration and quality of our sleep. While it's pretty commonly known that things like sleeping on a full stomach or going to bed too late can impact how rested we feel, it's important to recognize some other factors that may be preventing you from feeling nice and rested. The first factor that I really want to talk about is water. We know that water is good for us, but do you really know how important it is? Studies suggest that not drinking enough water can lead to shorter sleep times and worse perceived sleep quality. Be careful though, as drinking too much water too close to bedtime can lead you to get up throughout the night to go to the toilet. Fun fact, this is known as nocturia. It's completely normal, especially as you get older, but it can be unpleasant when you have to wake up in the dark and get up in the cold to use the toilet. It's not my personal idea of fun. The second factor that I want to talk about is exhausting ourselves enough for sleep. Now, this mini-series is not called the ADHD Survival Guide for nothing. ADHD folks like myself tend to have a lot of energy, and processes must be created which allow us to burn this energy in order to actually feel tired at the end of the day. I personally try to tire myself out both mentally and physically. Mentally, I try and focus on my work, though, to be honest, some days I am mentally exhausted just from being inside my own head. And that's okay. There are things that can be done to improve that, which I will touch on in the future, such as therapy and mindfulness practices. So I'm going to just put that to the side for now. But physically exhausting myself, if we move to that, can be a bit harder. The role of a student is an inherently sedentary occupation, which for many leaves little opportunity for meaningful movement sessions as part of the workday. The best advice that I can give, if you can, is to integrate the exercise into parts of your life that you already do. For me, this was my commute. If it's safe for you to do so, try walking or cycling to uni instead of driving or taking public transport. Another way to get your exercise in can include going for walks, taking part in sports clubs, or even playing video games. VR headsets have loads of different games that you can use to stay in shape. I personally use Beat Saber and I have great fun. Booking in for lessons at the gym may also work, since a booking creates a commitment for you to show up instead of that loose promise about you going to the gym, kind of New Year's resolution style. You can also get furniture designed to release energy at work, such as wobble chairs and standing desk, which allow you to get some of your energy out while still working. The best thing to do is experiment and learn what works for you. So, the next factor I want to talk about is probably quite cliche, but it's all about maintaining that healthy circadian rhythm, also known as having a regular body clock. You probably know the fundamental way to maintain a body clock is to wake up and go to sleep at the same time every day. I'm sure it's been drilled into many of us, but it is so much more than that. Our internal clocks are influenced by so many things. Getting enough sunlight early in the day is one of them, the time that we eat our food, when we exercise, the amounts of caffeine and stimulants we consume, especially the amount of stimulants that we consume. Having coffee, tea, energy drinks, or even prescription medication too late in the day can significantly impact your quality and duration of sleep that night. It has the capability to totally throw off your body clock. So, in short, regular and healthy routines and very mindful caffeine and stimulant usage are key to training your body clock to actually feel tired at night and help you to drift off into a nice, cozy slumber. Finally, I want to touch on chronotypes, which ties in quite nicely with what we've just said about body clocks. You may have heard of early birds or night owls, people who get up early or go to sleep late respectively. I won't get into too much detail here, but learning your chronotype is a great way to work out when you are at your most productive and when the time you're going to sleep and the duration of your sleep works for you. If you want more information about our body clocks, I can really recommend the book Lifetime by Professor Russell Foster, who does a fantastic job at explaining how our internal clocks function and change as we age based on current research. Right, so with the points about body clocks done, it's now time to discuss what to do around bedtime. Preparing for sleep in a healthy way is a super important component to good sleep hygiene and, in my opinion at least, is the coziest and most fun bit of the process. My sleep preparation normally starts when my phone's content filtering system turns on at 8 p.m. I personally use the Freedom app for content filtering. This isn't sponsored, because I find it much harder to bypass than other filtering apps. It blocks all of my social media and news channels, as well as my apps which I may be using too much at any given time. The main reason I use it is that it works cross-platform, which is absolutely perfect because I use a mix of Android, Windows, and Apple ecosystems. When there is nothing to do on my phone or other screens, I am more likely to spend time away from screens and instead do self-care and chores that I need to complete in the evening. This is really key because reducing stimulation at night, be it from social media, academic pressures, or even a rowdy game night, will help your brain to get into a restful state before going to bed. Conversely, stimulation prompts the brain to think and want to do things, anything. Rest can also be promoted by dim, warm lighting, so keep that in mind if you tend to use quite cool lights close to bedtime. The next thing I do is reset my space and prepare for the next day. This includes putting everything I've used during the day back in its rightful place, cleaning my dirty dishes, and doing a little bit of meal prep for breakfast. I also pack and prepare my bags and lay out my clothes for the next day. I do this because decision fatigue is a very real thing, and I don't want to deplete my energy early in the morning by making mental decisions the moment I wake up. Preparing the night before, especially while at university, allowed me to spend more time the next day making decisions that really mattered instead of worrying about what outfit I was planning to wear. This next tip is one of my favourites. If you really want to spoil yourself, you should consider having a hot bath or shower before bed. Bonus points if you use a lavender bath mix or some kind of bath salts. The reason you want to have a hot bath or shower is because the hot water heats up your core body temperature, leaving you to cool off once you're in bed. This drop in body temperature in bed is really helpful for falling asleep, making it more likely for you to have a restful night's sleep. Remember to make sure that your blankets or PJs are not too hot and that you have enough layers to not be kept awake by a draft at night. No one likes being too hot at night, but no one really likes a cold night's sleep either. So at this point, the lights are down, our room is reset, and our body temperatures are regulated. Time to get into bed. Let's talk about some tips that can help us there. So hopefully the tips in this episode so far lead you to fall asleep pretty quickly at the end of a long day after some routine has been built up. But obviously this won't happen every night, nor to every person. If you are tired but your brain is still running with thoughts, there are a few things that you can try. So first, check if you're using your phone in bed. Using your phone in bed during the day can lead you to associate your bed with being awake on your phone instead of being asleep. You should also check that you're not using your bed as a thinking space instead of a sleeping space. You might be doing this completely inadvertently if you're up and awake thinking all night. If you have a super active mind, try getting out of bed after 15 minutes or so of trying to sleep to do a mindful activity. I normally get a distinct feeling in my body if I've been dozing in bed for too long, kind of like a settled discomfort where I want to sleep but my brain is wide awake. This is the point that I normally get up and do some stretching and deep breathing. It can also be important to use this time to identify why your brain is feeling awake. For example, are you anxious? Did you not tire yourself out enough in the day? Do you feel like you need to do something productive? That one I can help with. If you feel like you need to do something productive before going to bed, wait a second before reaching for your phone, laptop, or book. Work is wonderful, in moderation, but stimulating yourself during bedtime hours is a one-way ticket to sleeplessness, and if that behavior persists and is reinforced over a number of days, it can lead you to unwanted long-term changes to your body clock that will need to be readjusted. Instead, take 5 to 10 minutes after getting up to complete a totally mundane task, like wiping down a shelf or watering plants. I found that completing a small task fulfills my brain enough, and that little motor telling me I need to do something, it fulfills it enough for sleep. This includes situations where I felt like I needed to complete a big task in order to sleep, so it's very helpful. Keep it in mind next time you feel like you need to be super productive in the middle of the night, because I promise you, normally you can trick your brain. But if for some reason you're still feeling really awake, you can always try and slow your brain down using conventional mindfulness techniques such as journaling or meditation. I find that the Headspace Sleepcasts, again not sponsored, and a weighted blanket have always worked well for me, and other alternatives are available to look at. I know Calm is very popular, for example. Mindfulness is a great tool in general, and I found it to be especially effective when my anxiety and racing thoughts were keeping me awake at night. Just as a quick aside though, sleeplessness and associated problems can be a sign that you should seek medical support and there is something wrong. Please go and see a professional if you think you need it, instead of just listening to strangers on the internet. So, now that that's all covered, hopefully you've had a really good night's sleep and you're waking up feeling somewhat rested. In the final section of this episode, I want to dedicate some time to discussing how we can take the positive momentum from good sleep into our day and be the version of our most awake and productive selves. So, first, when you wake up, you should try and get some kind of natural light in your room. Natural light is the best way to wake up your body, well, naturally. But I get it. This is the UK. It may not be light until after you wake up. In this case, I would massively recommend investing in a sunrise alarm clock or programmable smart lights to replicate the sunrise. This will go a long way to helping you feel more rested when it comes to actually getting up in the morning. This is because your body normally responds to sunrise. That's what it naturally does. And if you're just waking up in the dark, it doesn't get that prompt, which can leave you to feeling very groggy. If you don't have access to an alarm clock, I totally get that you may need to use your phone to wake you up. That is fine. In this case, it's really important to use your phone in the correct way and ensure that it's not tempting to scroll on. Obviously, this can be paired with the content blockers to help you get up, but I personally use Challenger's alarm clock to get out of bed. Again, this isn't sponsored, I just find a lot of useful apps. So Challenger's alarm clock is an app that's available on Android. That's what I use it on. I don't think it's exactly available on Apple devices, but I think there are equivalent apps for you on Apple. Challenger's alarm clock works by setting an alarm and then setting a challenge that will help to wake you up when the alarm goes off. So personally, if I have to get out of bed for an event or a work day, I always set a challenge, or I have to go and take a picture of my toothbrush the moment I wake up. I have no snooze, and the alarm only stops playing once I have gone to the bathroom and taken the photo. This puts me next to my sink and ready to brush my teeth every single morning. Challenges can also be adapted for those of you who might not be able to do a challenge, such as taking a picture of your toothbrush, where this may be impractical for whatever reason, such as if you use a shared bathroom. I'm just sharing what works for me here. So, speaking of alarms, the final piece of advice I have is to wake up at the same time every day, allowing for occasional rest days if needed. I personally like to have a lie-in once a week. As someone who can wake up with pretty low dopamine levels because of my ADHD, I find that I am always late to get up on time if there is something to actually wake up for. I did this in my master's by creating a very rigid sense of routine towards the end, so I was waking up to be at the same workplace every day. And if you study in a STEM subject, I'm sure that having a lab to wake up to is a great incentive to get out the front door. For those of us in the arts, I encourage you to find an incentive to get out of bed at the same time each day. This may include working in person with an accountability buddy who also has to be at a place at a given time. You could be waking up to your favorite radio show, or even waking up early to secure a popular spot in the library. Whatever works for you, right? Like, we need to be kind to ourselves, but we also need to learn about ourselves in the process. And that was the final tip. That concludes the ADHD Survival Guide episode on sleep. Thanks so much for tuning in to the first episode of the ADHD Survival Guide on the HE Enable podcast. I hope that you find these tips as helpful as I have. If you have any thoughts you want to share, or indeed your own advice, then the comments on this episode are open and I would love to hear your thoughts. Next time on the ADHD Survival Guide, I will be giving my best tips and tricks for another aspect of life which ADHDers find challenging: food. I will be discussing my life hacks for eating consistently and relatively healthily throughout my degree. The ADHD Survival Guide is a sub-series of the HE Enable podcast, a platform for those with disabilities and long-term health conditions in the British higher education system to share their stories. If you are interested in being on the show to share your experiences of disability, then get in touch at henabled@gmail.com. That is HENABLED@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.